Thanks, Claire, I think. All right, folks, I'm always challenged at this point in these kind of events where everything I had planned, and due to what I'd heard in the morning and glancing around the room, I think I need to shift some of this, what I planned to say. And ironically, I'm going to start with a quote from Claire Palin. She doesn't know this. The two previous speakers this morning have indeed, I think, set me up very, very well for what I'm going to offer you now. But Claire ended just before the coffee and she said this: you can't argue with the science and the evidence. Did you hear her say that? Well, I'm going to say this, but we do. And is it even known? Is it championed? Is it strived to be followed? But most importantly, and is kind of one of the themes of me being here today, is do we follow the evidence? Do we know what it is? And do the people that have the most opportunity to deploy messages and information, do they know it? Do they know it? And it's at this point where I kind of feel like you can hear me breathing down this. I put the dampers on things a bit because wherever I go and whoever will listen to what we have to say, at some point I kind of tug on the shirts and go, but are we doing enough? What are the things we're missing? What are the missed opportunities? And the broadest theme about this offering I have you now and the workshop this afternoon and the learning events to follow, we need to sweat the small stuff. And the biggest reason I'm here today is not for today's event or this afternoon's workshop, or the hope that you will consider taking up an ongoing learning opportunity for perhaps teams that you support or teams that you know of. Because in any event like this, and I said to Claire when we first met, I'll speak to anyone that's prepared to listen, but where are the people that really could benefit from this information? The workforce, the teams, how are they updated? Where do they get their information? And how do we make this relevant so that they can hear it, see it, feel it, and then go and take it to an older person they're about to support? So this is part one. Hopefully you're here for part two this afternoon. And there's a part three if you choose to register and sign up your teams. And we're here to sweat the small stuff and to really seek the missed opportunities. Hello, my name is Bex Townley. You may have heard of Later Life Training. We've been in existence for 21 years. I've been working with them since about 2006. And if you have heard of us, you may be familiar with our work around falls prevention. Or you may not. A little bit about me. I'm not a clinician, I'm not an academic. All of the research slides I've stolen from Dawn Scouten here today. Dawn is a director of LLT, Professor of Ageing at Glasgow Caledonian University. But the reason I put this here, just to give you a little bit of info about me, is that I'm in the business of physical activity, movement, structured exercise, and evidence-based structured exercise to prevent and reduce falls in primary and secondary pathways. This is significant. My work as an exercise professional in the past 30 years and my work with LLT has taken me into every setting: care, health, leisure, ward-based support, and working with volunteers. So all of the information that you're hearing from me today is coming from a place of best evidence and huge insight, because we've been delivering training, supporting teams in all of these sectors for 21 years. You see the numbers here, a fair few thousand professionals that we've worked and supported. And you may be familiar with our key training products, the PSI instructor, a Targo leader, for those of you that work within falls prevention, fast steps and dementia, functional fitness MOT, and Care to Move is the kind of the new kid on the block. And the reason I've highlighted Care to Move is because it's really the heart of the messages, the missed opportunities that I'm going to offer you today. And although I'm here as an exercise professional who delivers evidence-based falls prevention exercise training, I'm not here to talk about exercise today. And it's at this point I say, please, could I have a show of hands? Just a show of hands, show your hands. Who is in the business, in this room, of promoting physical activity? Who does that directly through delivering physical activities? Who is not too sure? Who's in the business of physical fitness? And who's in the business of delivering structured, progressive, tailored, individualised, sufficiently dosed exercise? Thank you for the show of hands. I'm just collecting information here so I can land these balls really firmly. All right, so my key role now is over and above working within the small LLT team. We deliver training all over the UK, from Inverness down to Land's End, from Wales to Norfolk and overseas. We've done considerable work into Europe and further afield. Everything I say to you today is coming from a place of evidence, credible evidence. My key themes, as you've probably have already alluded to, are physical activity, sedentary behaviour, a bit on normal ageing, and the big one, supporting behaviour change over time. And I invite you to do things differently. The key evidence and guidelines underpinning my offer today, you can see on the screen here, the CMO physical activity guidelines, make every contact count, COMB behaviour change model, and Care to Move. If you had the inclination, there's a YouTube link there to watch a 1-hour webinar on the feasibility study of Care to Move. Evidence-based practice is at the heart of what we do at LLT, which is why Claire's closing comment from the last session really resonated, because somewhere in all this, surely amongst all the successful stuff, everything has a place, everything has value, but we are still missing stuff. And it's always a challenge for me to find that balance between celebrating great stuff and provision, but they can go in, but is it sufficiently dosed? Is it targeted? Is it evidence-based? Have we got the right people in the right programme at the right time? Are you tackling primary prevention of falls or secondary? If secondary, where's your health partnerships? Where's the time to assess? If you're working in care settings, are we enabling people to move, or only offering them a once a week of a physical activity offer? Care to Move is about promoting movement as part of usual care. And actually, regardless of your sector, if we remove physical activity as the overarching kind of theme, and if we remove structured exercise and replace it with movement, if I were to say to all of you, who's in the business of moving, to whatever degree or extent, it would be all of you. If we were to ask 100 people on the street, how important is it for you to exercise? What might we get? probably a slap round the face and a walk away, talk to the camera. If we asked 100 people in the street, how important is it for you to move? Well, of course it is. Stupid. And yet, how good are we at doing that? I have a selection of slides, as I say, I've stolen from Dawn Skelton and Bob LaVenture. And my slide deck doesn't really tell a story. It's the slides I could get my hands on to go somewhere in here. Hopefully something will land with someone, regardless of sector or team or workforce, and they'll be able to run with it, pardon the pun. So we're starting with this. Here's the thing, and if any of you have done any of our events with Bob LaVenture, we knew this was coming. We knew that the ageing trajectories of our countries was on the up. But have a look at the graph, the bar graphs here. I'm going to ask you again, who in the room is working to support people between the age bracket of 45 to 54? And the next one, 55 to 64? And the next one? And the next one? And the next one? Okay. Being more physically active is first and foremost a behaviour change. And this has been mentioned by Angela, and the issue of motivation was also mentioned by flipping pain. If we are in the business of physical activity and supporting people to move more, and we know that changing our routines and behaviours is at the heart of that shift in thoughts, behaviours and attitudes. I wonder, everyone in the room, if you do this for me. How's that feel? And if you take your left hand as being your primary expertise in what you do, regardless of your profession. If you're a physiotherapist, an OT, care walker, strategic person, around the realms of the knowledge of your primary work, are you up here with that knowledge and expertise? Where, you'd probably like to think you're up here, right? You know what you're doing, yes? Do you know what you're doing? Put your arm up there then. But you all said to me, you can lie to me, I don't know who you are, what you do. You all said you're in the business of physical activity and supporting people to move more. So if the right hand was knowledge of the evidence of behaviour change, what it takes to shift conversations, what does it mean to engage in a conversation about what's important, what's your barriers, what's your concerns, what do you know about self-efficacy, what do you know about what helps or hinders people to change, where are you with intrinsic and extrinsic motivators, where are you about tailoring language. So if you do this and you support people to be more active, technically we should be there, right? Are you there? Are you? And it's a rhetorical question. I'm more interested actually in the people that are not here in the room today. There's only, 150 of you here? And perhaps not all of you have direct links with teams. I'm going to say on the ground, at the coalface, operationally, whites of the eyes with older people and people we support. Where are those people? And let's pose the question to them, right? Forget about you, forget about your expertise, forget about what you may or may not know about behaviour change. What do they know? What do they know about the evidence for being more physically active? What is sedentary behaviour? What does it mean to break up long periods of sitting? What does it mean to have a meaningful conversation and ask open questions? Angela mentioned language, set me up perfectly. First and foremost, our biggest missed opportunity are the conversations we're having And we, the workforce, the teams, are quite often hindering self-efficacy, are hindering more movement opportunities. Shall I do next slide? It kind of encompasses what I've just said here. Being physically active is hard work. It has been mentioned as a wonder drug this morning, but guess what? It doesn't matter what's good for us. It says on a packet of cigarettes, smoking kills you. People still enjoy it. People don't want to be told what to do. They don't want to be told it's good for you. Everyone seems to think exercise and moving more is good for someone else. You need to be doing this. You should be doing that. Why don't you do this? Why don't you shut up and do it yourself? Was something that a gentleman responded to someone actually in care setting, and it made me laugh a lot. So, being physically active across the life course is hard work, and it peaks and troughs, and life throws itself at us, doesn't it? And our decisions shift and change, and Angela is one testimony of that. What age were you, Angela, when you took up ultra running? 53. At the end of this slide is the physical activity guidelines. Now, it won't surprise you to know, and I've got a slide coming, not a lot of people know that. I'm going to say again, I don't care about you people in the room today. I'm more interested in the people that aren't. I'm more interested in the support workers that don't know they exist. You heard Angela say this morning, it's never too late to start, it's never too early to start. Other key messages you'll see in here is that every movement counts. Something is better than nothing, but more is better. And this is kind of where I'm on a cusp of making myself unpopular, but we're stopping at the something, and we're not striving for the more is better. And if we sweat the small stuff, we can do even more for those people that need it the most. Those at the lowest level of physical function have the most to gain from the least amount of input around moving. For example, if you wanted to do a few sit-to-stands now, you could, right? I'm sure, no problem. Don't worry, I'm not going to invite you to. If we also had an audience of frailer older people sat here, who would benefit the most from 2 more sit-to-stands today? You lot or them? Them. And this is clear in a slide that's coming. So those at the lowest level of physical function have the most to gain. It's never too late to start. Every minute counts. It says there in the physical activity guidelines, but across the hundreds of training that we deliver across the UK, when I show this infographic, brackets not a very good one, how many people have actually seen it? And if they have seen it, do they understand it? Can they interpret it? Can they use it? This infographic is for us. It's not for older people. It's evidence condensed so that we can take those messages and do something with it. But guess what? No one knows it exists, and those that do really don't know what to do with it. I've mentioned this slide here, and I've circled primary prevention. The overarching, dream is to reduce those falls and fractures levels. If we can get physical activity onto the radars, if we understood what it was and how we could promote more of it, physical activity at 65 predicts falls at 90. That's primary prevention, not secondary. I mentioned this just now. Back in 2017, this work by Anna Lowe and others, basic knowledge of physical activity guidelines, only 20% of GPs, only 16% of physios, and as I've just said, across all the settings and work that we do, Sometimes people are seeing this for the first time. Sometimes people know about how much alcohol they shouldn't be drinking in a week than they do about the physical activity guidelines. And if they do know about physical activity guidelines, it's usually around the huff and puff stuff, 150 minutes or something. But if you look at this, and if we come back to my initial point of, are we all in the business of moving? There are 4 messages on here that everyone could be involved with. Bottom left, minimise sedentary behaviour. That's nothing to do with age, by the way. We are all beholden to the kind of decline. The more time we spend in sit, the less responsive and active our physiology is going to be. And something is good, more is better. Never too late, every minute counts. The most significant thing about those messages isn't just that it's stamped on an infographic. It should be in our toolbox as part of our conversations. The care to move approaches really are informed by the sit less, move more message, or break up periods of sedentary behaviour. We're missing opportunities, and we know that the small stuff can have a big effect on those that need it the most. These statistics say it for themselves. We all say we're in the business of supporting people to move more, and yet our systems, our workforce don't have the time, are disabling movement rather than enabling and empowering movement. The care to move approaches and some examples that I'm going to offer you in the workshop this afternoon, and the learning agendas that we're going to offer you to take back to your teams if you would like, are the apparently small things that don't take any more time, that won't take any more money. What we will be tasked to do is change our own behaviours, our own professional behaviours, shift our own language. Angela mentioned this. It's such a big one. It doesn't cost any more money to say something different. And armed with a few movement prompts, everyone can make a bigger difference. 2, older people and Fred older people that are spending long periods of time sat down. Care to move are movement prompts and conversations to support more movement as part of existing usual care. Not the physical activity hour, not the seated something or other, not the when the person like me is wheeled in once a week to stimulate and create movement. This isn't about structured exercise. This is about the other 111 hours in a waking week. Check in. And that even extends to leisure. The great thing about this, it's gone now, this sedentary, breaking up sedentary time message. Are you all looking at my feet here going, is she going to fall off that? Just occurred to me. Leisure, care setting, health setting, it can apply to all of us, right? And for the exercise professionals in the room, because I know you're out there, that hour you spend with people, so powerful, but how much further could you go? There's more to supporting people to move more than that hour. What's happening in the other 111 hours? What are the messages that they're walking out the door with? What are we doing to support physical literacy so that it's not just about the groups? It's not just about where's the funding for the next provision of falls prevention or move it or lose it or British student. It's not about that. That's just like tip of the iceberg. How do we shift thoughts, attitudes and beliefs about what is possible, what can I do without you? These are just some statistics around why sitting less and moving more helps. And of course, this is really at the heart of what we could be supporting in our care settings. Lots of interactions I've had with support workers and teams with Care to Move. I know there's some colleagues here today from Age UK that have done a bit of Care to Move with us. It's really the small stuff that everyone can do, and I've got some examples of that in the workshop this afternoon. Pregnant pause for effect. Ironically, no one knows this stuff. And I'm not even exaggerating. And I feel a fraud most of the time when I take this work and offer this information. It is so empowering for people to actually know what's going on. And a lot of the time, after hearing this stuff, they then build their confidence. That Claire put up a slide on the opening segment today that said 32%, I think, of you were confident to have a conversation about moving more. Okay. That's not reflected. That's not certainly reflected in our insights. Because what does it mean to have a meaningful, purposeful conversation about moving more without saying, you should be doing this, I want you to be doing that, do this for me. These are the kind of words and language that really hinders people's potential. Angela Royd, we mentioned this, she was talking specifically about bones. Here, from our mid-30s, we are in decline to the tune of 1 to 2%, give or take, as much as 8, depending on some of the research, year on year, but is modifiable. We can make a different decision about how much we move. And we are all striving in our localities to create a moving more culture, progressing to moving more frequently, to achieving physical activity guidelines, to then taking up more structured evidence-based exercise for falls prevention or any other specific pathway you may be involved in. Here's the slide behind those at the lowest level of physical function, or the least active, the least physically active, have the most to gain. Have a look at these. Do you know what you're looking at? Angela, you can't answer this. What's this look like? I use these slides on Care to Move and in conversations at every opportunity because it's so visual. Their thighs, cross-section of thighs. Which set of thighs would you like to have to get you up the stairs? And when you look closer at the text, the top set of thighs is that of a 40-year-old triathlete. The set of thighs at the bottom is that of a 70-year-old triathlete. What's the moral of the story? Triathletes have really good thighs, regardless of age. There's lots of stuff in here. Regardless of age. Assuming there is a presence of disease, of course, muscle will respond, it will get stronger. And looking back at the physical activity guidelines, that big strength message in the middle, for years the cardiovascular guidance or the role of aerobic activity has very been much top of the tree. But strength is in town. And it's the muscle quality, the muscle mass that makes a huge difference to resilience, function, cognitive function even. And this is why I reach into kind of leisure sector colleagues as well. Something is better than nothing, but we're missing out on so much more. And I couldn't help but look at this image when I arrived. We're missing out on so much here. If you could come forward in the chair a bit, sit up a little bit more upright, drop that round to about belly button height, really rotate the wrist up, make it more of an activity for his upper back rather than his shoulder extensors, and bang, you've got even more effective activity going on in that upper back strengthener. That wasn't in the script, but I couldn't help it. But here's why it's significant. Have a look at this one. It's a fairly recent one, and it's actually specific to falls prevention exercise. When you look at the physical activity guidelines and it says something's better than nothing, there isn't a full stop there. And yet, everywhere I go and offer this kind of feedback, I'm faced with something's better than nothing. But that's not the whole message. you've sliced half of it off. The other half says, and more is better. But we're not doing very well with that in physical activity or in fidelity of evidence-based exercise programs. How does it sound to have a 6% reduction in falls? It'd be all right, but look at the other side. Up against 54%. Why is that? Because we could do better in the most simplest of ways. Angela mentioned quite a bit about specificity this morning, specifics of training, bone loading and muscle strengthening. And that's kind of why I mentioned this. Oodles and oodles of this going on. I'm sorry to say it's largely ineffectual, but something's better than nothing. Because look, we could be striving for this. How do we get from 6% reduction in falls to 54% reduction in falls? How do we get that bar graph that I started with to increase physical activity? Well, it would help if we stopped telling people what to do. It would help if we stopped exercising with people while they're with us. It would help if our therapy teams could really support the workforce to encourage people to really do their exercises before I see you next week. What makes that shift? It's the behaviour change information. Being physically active, doing your home exercise program is first and foremost a behaviour change. Where's our knowledge and information on that? It's really, really low down on the radar. I said I wasn't going to be specific to falls prevention or structured exercise, but I couldn't help myself here because there's another missed opportunity, or there's another message that isn't really accurate. Seated exercise doesn't reduce falls. It can't do. It can't possibly do because it's sat down. And to improve balance, we need all of our balance mechanisms interacting and integrating. There's lots we can get from seated exercise. Yes, yes, yes. I'm not saying we can't. We can get lots of upper limb strength going on. We could get loads of seated postural stability going on if only we would nudge him forward a bit, get his heels back and down and create a little bit of pelvic tilt, for example. We're missing out on the simple stuff because something's better than nothing. Here's something else. I did say it was going to be I didn't say it was going to be doom and gloom, did I? I should have done. Here's the other thing. What helps and hinders people being more physically active? Having a high expectation of progress could help, but we don't. We don't have the expectation. My view, too heavy on the gentle exercise, pardon the pun. Too heavy on the something is better than nothing, that's not the end of the message. If we don't have expectations, what do you expect at my age? Progress. Because it's just not there. I think we're still miles behind on what the evidence says is possible and feasible. Something to strive for. Having said all that doom and gloom, I did say one of my biggest challenges is to highlight what we're missing. It goes without saying, let's celebrate what we're doing. We need to park that and go, what could we be aiming for? If we keep doing what we've always done, we keep getting what we've always got, which is not many people being physically active and increasing falls rates. So I mentioned physical literacy a few slides back, and when Claire first asked me if I'd be interested in speaking today, she'll probably remember this. I said, I'll speak to anyone that listens, but this has got to be more than turn up, listen and have a coffee and a free lunch. There must be more we can do. How do we reach the people? How do we reach the workforce that need this information the most to do the most with it. And she said, I don't know, what do you want to do? I said, well, let's give them something. Let's be provocative, let's give them some information. How do we get the information to the workforce? We give it to them. In these themes, let's give them what the accurate messaging is and where it comes from. Let's support better conversations. Not only that, let's plant the seeds, let's make some suggestions of what they might want to change about their conversations when they go to work next week. Let's challenge them to stop saying, carefully stand up, gently do this, put your foot up there for me. Let's stop all that. This conversation happened, Claire, didn't it? Let's stop all that. Let's change the world and sweat the small stuff. Let's reflect on our behaviours to better support physical literacy. How can we influence the 111 hours, not just the 1 hour that we're with people? And that is physical literacy. So, thanks for listening. That is the end of part 1. And if you do need to disappear after the free lunch, these learning action agendas are literally that. We sweat the small stuff. It's a single piece of A4, maybe double, that as a team lead you could use when you have a huddle with your team as part of your existing team meetings. Here's some information, here's the source of the evidence, here's the action that you could task your team to have a go at. And they're covering the 4 themes that I just offered you on the slide prior. And in the workshop this afternoon, I'm going to offer you some examples of what I mean by sweating the small stuff. That's a QR code. If you shine your camera on that, it takes you to register to the Active Learning Agenda. This is free learning. If you feel there's something that your teams might be missing, if you want some information to further enhance your practice and get even more from what we're currently doing. I think that's it, Claire. I'm done.